All right, let's take a look at the Washington Redskins and see what did they do during the 2018 offseason to try to improve their roster. First, let's look and see how much cap space did they have to work with. Well, at the beginning of the offseason, they had about $32 million in cap space. So not horrible, not bad. They had a little bit of money to work with. And at the beginning of August, they had about $12 million left. So they spent some of that money, but still certainly have some left over in case maybe a good player becomes available or a guy gets hurt and they need to replace him. So they're not in a terrible situation. There wasn't anybody on their roster that I saw at the beginning of the preseason that was like a real obvious player that might get cut. So let's look instead at the offensive unrestricted free agents. Who were the guys who on offense that contributed last season that were going to be unrestricted free agents? Well, Sean Laval, he played guard last season. He finished up a 4-year, $17 million deal. Had missed 22 games the last 3 seasons. So he'd been injured a lot, did not play very well at all last season. And, I didn't think that he should return as a starter, and he almost certainly will not. They did, however, give him a 1-year, $1.5 million deal to return. I guess they figured, well, the guy knows the system, so we'll, bring him back for depth purposes. So they did give him a deal, a 1-year deal this offseason. Spencer Long is another guy who is going to be a free agent, or was a free agent. He was the starting center, had been drafted in the 3rd round, but when he got injured, the 6th-round rookie, Chase Roulier, he came in and played very, very well. So you knew that Spencer Long might not be coming back, but they also could have moved him at guard because they needed someone to play guard. But the Jets gave him 4 years and $27.4 million. So the Redskins decided they couldn't match that. So Spencer Long won't be back in Washington. He'll be up in New York. Of course, the biggest name in free agency was Kirk Cousins. Wow. They franchised him twice. Couldn't agree to a long-term deal with him. I think Kirk Cousins people knew that they really had the Redskins because, of course, he would like a long-term deal and get that guaranteed money, get a huge signing bonus or whatever, but they knew that he performed well enough that if he ever hit free agency that he was going to get a huge contract, and the franchise money was pretty huge anyway, pretty big anyway. So, heck, they let the Redskins franchise him twice and then end up getting a 3-year, $84 million deal fully guaranteed with Minnesota. So, that's a great team to be with. You'd expect he's going to have 2, maybe 3 really good seasons. They got good receivers there. So if Kirk Cousins is able to have two or 3 good years, he'll end up averaging $28 million, and he might be able to get another huge contract from somebody. So I think his agents played it really, really well, to be honest with you, particularly since his $84 million contract is fully guaranteed. He's rich. He's rich for life. He's set. Now if he wins the Super Bowl, get out of the way because he's going to get another huge contract. So Kirk Cousins, it really worked out for him. We'll see if it worked out for the Redskins. Ryan Grant, another important guy, wide receiver, was a free agent this offseason. Had put up solid number 2 wide receiver numbers, 573 yards, 4 touchdowns, but really he's only had one good season in his career. I mean, he's never missed a game after being drafted out of the 5th round, but had one great year. The Colts decided to give him 1 year and $5 million, and Washington decided not to match it. So you got the number 2 wide receiver and your quarterback both gone in free agency. Terrell Pryor was supposed to be a big acquisition last offseason. You can see after converting to wide receiver in his 2nd year as a wide receiver, boom, he blew up with Cleveland, 1,000 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns, 77 catches. It's huge, but did not play very well at all for the Redskins. 240 yards in 9 games. He got benched before going on IR with an ankle injury. So that really did not work out well for Washington at all. The Redskins were happy to let him walk, and the Jets gave him a 1-year deal worth $4.5 million. So I'm surprised he was able to get $4.5 million, but the Jets are going to give him another shot. Niles Paul also is a free agent. Was a good blocking tight end. Was making an average of $2 million per year on a 3-year deal. So, not bad. He was a 5th round pick a long time ago, back in 2011. He got a 2-year, $4.75 million deal with Jacksonville. So he got a small little baby raise to go and play in Jacksonville. What about on the defense? Who are the guys on defense that were free agents? Zach Brown might have been the biggest name. Had a really good season, great season, for a guy that was playing through a sore Achilles. Although remember that a sore Achilles, hopefully it'll heal up, this off season. Because if he tears that Achilles, that will be really sad. I mean, knock on wood. I'm not rooting for it, but I'm just saying. Richard Sherman had a sore Achilles with Seattle last year before it finally ruptured. But Zach Brown, not great in coverage, but was one of the better, inside linebackers that was available in free agency. 12 tackles for a loss, had almost 150 tackles the year before in Buffalo. He's a really, really strong player. He had played on a 1-year, $2.3 million deal last year. Kind of a prove-it deal. And he proved it, so the Redskins gave him 3 years and $21 million. $7 million a year. Strong. Junior Gillette, another linebacker who was a free agent. Speaking of Achilles, he tore both his Achilles the last couple of years. In 2015 and 2016. He's going to be 30 next season. Played last year on a 1-year, $800,000 deal. So we'll see if a 30-year-old linebacker with a history of Achilles tears is able to get a deal, get a job. So far he hasn't. Will Compton, another linebacker that was a free agent. Great teammate, great inside linebacker, but lost his starting job. Missed 7 games with a foot sprain. Only had 19 tackles after averaging 100 tackles the 2 seasons before. Was playing last year on a 1-year tender worth $1.8 million. And despite the bad year, was able to get a 1-year, $1.25 million deal with Tennessee. I assume in Tennessee he'll probably be a backup and not a starter, but we'll see. But either way, he won't be back with the Redskins. And at cornerback, Bashaud Breeland was a free agent. played well. He actually got paid by Carolina, but then failed his physical. And so far, it doesn't seem like anyone has brought him in. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Bashaud Breeland, if anyone wants to bring him in, a former 4th-round pick. Also, Trent Murphy, another free agent, did not play last year, so did not contribute because he tore his ACL. But the year before, he had 9 sacks. And Buffalo took a risk and said, hey, look, we know you just tore your ACL last season, but we'll give you 3 years and $22.5 million because you had 9 sacks the year before. So he won't be back with Washington either. Finally, we got D'Angelo Hall, 34 years old. Was a great veteran for many, many years, but definitely too old for a guy that was, his last contract was for $4 million a year. So he will probably be done in the NFL. Let's summarize all of the changes that happened in the Redskins roster. The biggest change of all, of course, is the change at quarterback. Kirk Cousins got 3 years and $84 million, or $28 million on average per year, fully guaranteed. Alex Smith, after being traded over from Kansas City, got 4 years and $94 million. So you can see that's closer to $23 million a year. So I don't know, man. Alex Smith at $23.5 million, or Kirk Cousins at $28 million. Look at the numbers. Well, if you look at last year, Alex Smith did pretty darn well. 4,000 yards, almost the same as Kirk Cousins. 26 touchdowns, fewer interceptions, higher completion percentage. But then when you think about the weapons that Alex Smith had, like Tyreek Hill, Albert Wilson, compared to the weapons that Kirk Cousins had, it'll be interesting. Those are two guys you're going to want to compare in the upcoming season. But once again, what does Alex Smith have at wide receiver this year compared to Kirk Cousins? So it's more than just the quarterback. Darius Geis, 2nd-round pick at running back, that could be big. So, did the Washington Redskins upgrade at quarterback? Most people would say definitely not. But I don't think they took a huge step back either. I really don't. But at running back, I think, wow, that could be big. I think Geis could have a big year. So that's got to be exciting if you're a Redskins fan. At wide receiver, Ryan Grant and Terrell Pryor are gone. Grant got a 1-year, $5 million deal with the Colts. Instead, the Redskins brought in Paul Richardson and gave him a 5-year, $40 million contract with $20 million guaranteed. Richardson will play outside, which will allow Jamison Crowder to slide back into the slot. So I don't know, Alex Smith could have some weapons. We'll see. We'll see what he's able to do with what he's got. But I don't know, with Darius Geis at running back, with the receivers that Washington has, you could have a lot will depend on the offensive line. How well can the offensive line protect Alex Smith? And then Trey Quinn there came in as well in the 7th round. Niles Paul is out at tight end, so that's a loss there. On the offensive line, Garon Christian is in. He was a 3rd-round pick there at tackle, so we'll see how much he's able to contribute. And then Isaiah Williams has been a practice squad player, and so he'll be providing some depth. But, of course, the biggest acquisition there at tackle is Garon Williams. Center Spencer Long is out. That's a loss, but we talked about earlier where, he might have lost his starting job anyway. So not maybe a huge loss if Chase Roullier is able to have another big season. And on the defense, Terrell McClain is out. He ended up going and playing with the Falcons. Terrell McClain didn't have a big season last year with the Redskins. But Jonathan Allen is going to be back. He had a season-ending Lisfranc injury last season. So Jonathan Allen is expected to come in and contribute and make up for the loss of Terrell McClain. Could be an upgrade, for sure. But we'll have to wait and see. At defensive tackle, A.J. Francis was a backup player. He's out, but Daron Payne is in. That's going to be huge. I am pumped to see what Daron Payne is going to do. I was hoping the Falcons would get him, but unfortunately, the Redskins picked him up a lot sooner. He's got a lot of talent, a lot of ability. I think he's going to be a big addition to that Redskins defensive line. If everybody can be healthy on the Redskins defensive line, you could give teams trouble. You also drafted Tim Settle in the 5th round and also brought in Phil Taylor. Hasn't had any tackles since 2014, so I don't know if that's going to be a game changer for you. But Daron Payne is going to be a game changer. At linebacker, Junior Gillette is out, Will Compton is out, and Trent Murphy is gone. That's pretty big loss. How are you going to replace those guys? Well, you brought in Pernell McPhee and drafted Sean Dion Hamilton. I think that is a step back for the Redskins. I think this season you guys will not be as good at linebacker as you had been last year. At cornerback, Bashad Breeland out, and also Kendall Fuller is out. He was a great starting nickel that you guys traded in that Alex Smith trade to Kansas City. That's a huge loss for your defense. And to replace those guys with Orlando Scandrick, who is kind of at the tail end of his career, Adonis Alexander, that you picked him up in the supplemental draft. I mean, that could help. Greg Stroman in the 7th round. I don't know. I don't see this. The defensive line might be a little bit better, but the rest of your defense, I'm just not sure about. D'Angelo Hall was a reserve safety last year. He'll be out. Troy Apke is coming in from the 4th round, and Kenny Ladler has been mainly a practice squad guy. It's tough. I think the Redskins' offense will be really, really interesting to watch. I think you could have a very, very good offense, but is your defense going to be good enough to win enough games to really even be a playoff team? It's tough to say. I mean, I don't see it. I don't see anywhere near enough improvement on the defensive side of the ball to think that you're going to be able to make the playoffs. But, just note one thing. This video is only meant to compare to talk about the changes in the roster from last season. Who were the guys that were around last year that aren't around this coming year? And who are the new guys in this year? At the end of the preseason, we are going to break down the final rosters of all 32 teams. So you're going to want to click subscribe, because in the coming weeks and months, we are going to have some incredible videos. Like I said, we'll have the final rosters of all 32 teams, and we're going to break them down, show who the players are for each team, who the likely starters are, who some of the key backups are. And then each week we're going to preview the upcoming week's games, as well as in the middle of the week review the previous week's games. So, once the final roster hits with Washington, we're going to go over that. We're going to talk about each player and figure out what the depth chart looks like. But based on the change in the roster from last season, I don't know if your defense will be good enough to make the playoffs. But we'll see. Click that subscribe button. Be on the lookout for these videos because they're going to be great. And thank you very much.